You're listening to the Holistic Spaces podcast brought to you by Mindful Design Feng Shui School. Episode 104, Mindfulness of Spaces. Welcome to episode 104 of the Holistic Spaces podcast, where we hope to inspire, educate, and empower you to create your own holistic spaces that nurture and resonate with you. By the way, I've been saying that little line for like 5 or more. How long have I been doing this podcast?
Has it been 5 years? I don't
I
know.
think it's been
104
longer.
episodes you've been saying it for.
Yeah, but I had a break. Hold on. We're taking a break from the intro. We're going to go rogue. I just wanted to see what the first podcast was. We're going rogue. We like to go rogue here. Okay, episode number 1 was in 2015.
Okay.
So it'll
So
be 6
yes,
years.
5 years.
A little over 5 years. Okay, so back to the script. Welcome to episode 104 of the Holistic Spaces podcast, where we hope to inspire, educate, and empower you to create your own holistic spaces that nurture and resonate with you. Anjie Cho and Laura Morris are the founders of the Mindful Design Feng Shui School. Together, we have over 3 decades of experience designing harmonious spaces for our clients in our businesses. Through articles, books, workshops, videos, podcasts, Instagram, everything, all the stuff that we do, we have guided thousands of people to shift their energy and revitalize their living spaces. It would be cool if we could say millions.
5 more years.
Okay. So, and Mindful Design School, which brings you this podcast, offers feng shui courses and certifications. Be sure to check us out at mindfuldesignschool.com. So this is airing January 18th.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our practical feng shui just for January sold out and is done, but we have a February one. Hopefully it won't be sold out. I mean, hopefully it will be sold out, but keep an eye on the website at mindfuldesignschool.com if you want to join our practical feng shui class. It's a class where we have a limited amount of participants, like 9 or 10 participants, and we look at everybody's floor plan. So it's really fun because you get to see 9 to 10 different ways that the Bagua is applied, and you get to see all this amazing feedback. And Laura and I do like cartwheels and jump through hoops, like reading everyone's floor plan.
That's right.
So
Floor plan.
we also have our New Year's reset that we got so much feedback from people after we closed enrollment that they wanted us to open the enrollment again. So we just decided to leave the enrollment open until um February 10th or so, because the live class is on February 11th. So we hope you can come to that. Could you give them a little, Laura, could you
About the
explain?
reset?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can we're reopening it, right? Before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's
So
open now.
okay. So yeah, so it has 2 parts to it. One is something that's there ready for you right away, which is a lot of stuff about how to set up the home, how to use the bagua using crystals. We talk a lot about natural crystals. Anjie does a really beautiful meditation, and we have a reset checklist. So we have a checklist you can go through for your house. So that's all there in the course once you sign up immediately. But the magical part about it is the ceremony that we're going to be leading everyone through on the Lunar New Year, the 11th. Are we doing it on? Yep. And the details are all in there, the times, etc. And that's
February
live.
11th.
Yeah,
February
February 11th.
11th.
And that's live. And we will be walking you through a transcendental ceremony that is from the BTB Feng Shui School. And it is all about resetting and peeling off and letting go of whatever came before, so that you can set yourself up and start over in an energetic way for the new year. So we're going to be walking everyone through that. And and we're going to be talking about the animals too. We'll do something on the zodiacal animals for the year, for the metal ox. And there's going to be a special bonus, which we're going to spring on people the day of, and we're going to keep it a secret. Right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so today we're talking about, I'm going to interview Anjie, everyone, because We were talking and she's been working on a presentation. What's this presentation that you're working on for that you have
So,
done?
I am a member of a Buddhist community called Shambhala, and we have a center in New York City. And I've done talks for them before, but I have another talk for them tonight. And so
So you were
it's called,
preparing and you
yes.
were
So I was
putting together some
preparing.
ideas.
Yeah, I put
So,
this talk together, and it's really about feng shui meditation. So we thought it would be a nice thing to share, because
mhm.
also, like, Laura and I, this is it's a kind of a lot of work putting together content for a podcast every week. So we're always brainstorming on what we can talk about. So this really seemed of the moment, and
Mm,
yeah, and we wanted
yeah,
to
it works
share.
well. And
Hmm.
I think people are thinking about this stuff now. I mean, we're into the new year. We're a lot of us are at home and spending a lot of time at home, and we have been for a while. It looks like it's going to be like that for a little while longer. So this topic, I think, is, yeah, as you said, it's really timely. I think it's going to benefit people. And so the topic is about bringing more mindfulness into our homes, and the idea of mindfulness as a practice, as a meditation practice, and how that translates into the home, into the environment, right? So, um, Anjie, why don't you tell us a little bit about mindfulness meditation and how you see that extending, just like I said, extending into how we shape environments and the connection with environments.
Sure. So I actually really okay. So I'm a meditation practitioner, and it's a big part of my life, as is feng shui. And in truth, I feel that they are basically the same thing. That feng shui is a meditation of it's a meditation or mindfulness of your environment, whereas sitting meditation is kind of a more simplified version. But they are interconnected and interdependent. Just like whenever I talk about feng shui, I always try to emphasize the deeper meaning of it, is that it's not just about you. The reason why we want to move stuff in our home to shift our energy is because we are connected to our homes and we're not separate. And I think, especially in 2020, a lot of people spent more time indoors than they ever had. And most people spent more time in their homes than they ever had. But I think across the board, most people spent more time at home because we weren't able to travel, we weren't able to go visit friends as much and go to public spaces. So I think we all had to look at what our relationship to our spaces are. And similarly, mindfulness awareness or mindfulness meditation practice is about sitting down and being and slowing down and beginning to notice all the details in your life, so that um, you can have a way to work with speed, clutter, aggression, speediness. And it's really a lot of the same topics that we talk about in feng shui.
Hmm. And I, I think you said something about the outer environment. So we talk a lot about, when we're talking with our students, especially in the early stages of learning this practice, a little bit about the idea of connecting the inner and the outer. So, what does that mean for you from both a feng shui standpoint, and then how do you connect that to your practice as when in your mindfulness meditation as well? The idea of inner and outer.
So when we teach this to our students, I teach it from the maybe the more generic perspective that obviously your outside environment, like your bedroom or your home, that's the outer, and that extends further out to like your house, to your neighborhood, to your country, to planet Earth. And then the inner environment is kind of like what is inside, like what happened, like that voice that we have inside our heads, or the feelings and emotions that we have, or our sense perceptions. So when we talk about inner and outer environments in meditation, it's actually the same thing. So, but sometimes the outer environment also includes other people.
Mhm.
But same thing in feng shui, the outer environment connects to other people. And like one easy way that for people to understand this in terms of feng shui is like space clearing. So you can work on doing an internal space clearing and clearing your mind, clearing your doing breath work. And you can also do the same thing with your spaces.
Mhm. When you say like, is a meditation kind of like space clearing for your body? You know, in a way,
Yeah, it can
to
be.
create space.
It can be. It can be. It's it can be, except that I think space clearing and meditation both have the maybe misconception or maybe the superficial connection that you like. For meditation, people think, oh, it's about not having any thoughts.
Mm.
And with space clearing, people think, oh, it's about getting rid of bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
but when you go deeper in either practice, it's not about space clearing is not about like getting rid of bad stuff or keeping bad people away. Sometimes when you get deeper into the practice, you actually might attract more challenging people in your life so you can grow, or that you begin to interact with the challenging situations or the negative energy, or so you can learn how to protect yourself and create boundaries. And we always talk about transmuting it, which doesn't make it disappear, because it's not a magic trick. Nothing's going to disappear, but you can shift your perception on it and transmute it so it's still there but it's different. And similarly with meditation, like mindfulness meditation, it's not about clearing your mind of thoughts, but it's beginning to start to notice the habitual patterns of your thoughts. And similarly in feng shui too, like when you start to pay attention to your spaces, you start to see, especially with our feng shui students, you start to see, oh wow, these patterns begin to arise in our homes and they represent something. Like, remember I was telling you about a consultation I recently did? I don't know if I told you. I think I told you. I did a consultation for a client, and she was telling me one of the main things she wanted to work on was that she had an injury to her I think it was her
Oh
left
yes,
knee.
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did
Yeah,
tell me.
her left knee. And it had been a few years, and she's young, and she wanted to kind of get that back in balance. And then when we looked at her floor plan, uh the area of her bedroom that related to the right knee was had a missing area. It was sloped. And so that means that there's kind of like some challenges there. And
Mm-hmm.
then we laid her body on the bed, and it related to one of her bed leg. Your leg relates to your one of your bed legs. And the leg that was related to her left leg, she said, she was like, oh my God. She's like, okay, the bed I have, like it was homemade, so the bed frame was made by someone, so it was uneven. So her boyfriend had cut that leg, but then he cut it too short, because first it was too long and then he cut it too short, so then he had to like put a little shim on it and like bolt it together, so it was kind of like patched together.
Hobbled together.
I know, yeah, I was thinking it was hobbled together, which I think could really it's very much like immediately like that's your knee, like there's
Mm-hmm.
some kind of disjoint with the knee, and we were both like, whoa, this is.
Mm-hmm.
And also like even I don't one of my friends who came to our practical feng shui class, uh she she said over the holidays she was using some of the stuff that she learned in class plus from the New Year's reset program for her mom's feng shui, and she said immediately like things started shifting, like something about like her mom really wanted to get back to work,
Mm-hmm.
but her boss, because she was out because she'd been sick, her boss had been avoiding talking to her for months because she didn't want her to come in, and COVID and whatnot. As soon as she made a shift in her career area and they moved some blockages, he called. It was immediate, but he had been avoiding her for years. So it's
Mm-hmm.
also like, just like in when meditation, when we stop and are just sitting and with our thoughts, we can begin to see the patterns in our habitual patterns, and start to get to know like ourselves, because we spend most of our time being so busy not even getting to know ourselves. And same with our spaces. When we look at the feng shui, we notice, oh my gosh, I've had this like thing blocking my path all these years, or I've had like a door that's been hard to open all these years, or I've been in out of command my whole life. Like there's so many things that people learn.
Yeah. So for feng shui and meditation, obviously, as well, it's not about making something good or bad. It is about because energy is energy, and you can't, I mean, you could you just, as you said, transmute it. So the idea is to become more aware, right, of what is happening. So, and being once you become aware and you start to put focus on things and look at them in a different lens, or look at them at all, things do start to shift in both practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what are some ways that you would say is a way to cultivate mindfulness and awareness in your home? You mentioned a couple, looking at, details in the home or things or patterns, but what are a couple of things that you would say are good ways to cultivate that awareness?
Mm. Well, I think the first thing is to it just circles back to everything I've been saying, is to recognize and begin to become curious about how we are not separate from our outside world, that we are interconnected and interdependent with other people, with our spaces, and even objects, that they are all alive. And I think we've even learned that a lot during this global pandemic, is that we have this common thread that we're all having the same experience as human beings on this earth at this time. So just becoming curious about that, and not and recognizing it, and opening up to the idea that maybe your bed is alive, or that that obnoxious person that sent you the mean email is um is just like you, and maybe having a bad day. And then you can also start to see how the second thing is, then so first is noticing and becoming curious about how everything is interconnected and interdependent, how we're not separate, the inner and the outer. And then the second would be to begin to pay attention to the details in your environment. So one of the main tenets of mindfulness practice is to begin to be present in now. So it's simply slowing down and paying attention to the details. And in mindfulness, we might want to look at like, what are the obstacles and habitual patterns that keep coming up? And then we can also slow down as we move through our home and see like, what are obstacles in our path that are habitual patterns. Like, what Laura and I have a student who he lives in a New York City apartment, a long railroad apartment, which is really narrow. So you have like one hallway that goes through and then rooms off of it. And he had a bike that he never used right in the middle. So every several times a day, he would have to walk around it. Right. So that's kind of that. And that's like a pattern, or it's an obstacle that you get really used to and you ignore, but you accommodate for it. So just starting to pay attention to the details of your environment, or even starting to see like how parts of your home represent you. Like we always talk about, like Laura, right? Like we always talk about your bedroom is you, your desk is your career, your refrigerator and can represent your health. I mean, this is all kind of common sense if you think
Mhm.
about it, right? But if we start to pay attention to like, what's going on in that refrigerator? Have you cleaned it out lately? Do you have things that are spoiled or expired? Or where is there dust collecting in your home? Or where are you making accommodations in your daily path?
Mhm.
And then the third tip would be to simplify. So it's not necessarily decluttering, but how can we make every moment a ceremony? Like I take tea ceremony class, and one thing that my teacher was saying that we practice the same thing every week basically, right? And the goal is not really a goal, but you're making you want to make the best cup of tea for your guest. But you're essentially making the same cup of tea every time, but every time it's a different cup of tea. And it's a different moment, it's a different experience. So, but when you can simplify your environment, you can have an opportunity to start to appreciate things. So if you have like a room full of like 10 things that you love, or a room with one thing that you love, you can really appreciate that one thing. Like when I was traveling, I have this example. Oh yeah. So one of my favorite examples is I guess it depends on how old you are, but Laura, you remember when we were young and we would get like our first like record or first CD or first tape?
Yep.
Yeah, you would get like one. Your mom would say, "Okay, you can get one." You'd pick that one, and I'd go
Played
home and I
over and over and over
remember,
again.
yeah, you'd listen to it over and over again. I'd lay in bed reading like the tape cover, like the tiny tape color with all the lyrics. Like how many times would you listen to that one tape and memorize every lyric and read every detail about it? And it became very precious, right? But now we like download a zillion like songs. Um and don't listen to any.
You're sounding really old now. Stop it.
Or okay, or what happened, like when I went to Japan about a year ago in February of last year, I didn't, I was traveling, I didn't have that much with me, and I remember I just had two pairs of shoes, and I didn't have much to do besides just explore. And so spent like almost every night cleaning my shoes really well. And I never do that when I'm home in New York, right?
Because you
So
have to clean your shoes in Japan when you go places, right?
no, because I had nothing to do. I didn't
Oh,
have that much to do. So I'm like, I just have a couple pairs of shoes, some
I'm gonna
clothes.
clean my shoes. That's a big
So
night.
like, yeah, but I clean them really like you know what I mean? When you
Yes.
have something that's precious, like having things that are precious rather than collecting a lot of information or collecting a lot of objects. So because personally, like I get super overwhelmed with how much we have available to us.
That actually brings, okay, so you talked a little bit about the beauty of simplicity, because we in the podcast, I mean, we just did a few episodes ago, we talked to Catherine about this, and how this, I mean, you talked a little bit about the simplicity and how it connects to mindfulness practice, and it also does connect with feng shui. I mean, we try to overcomplicate things when we practice this sometimes, because we learn so much of this practice and we want to use all these adjustments and corrections and cures and sometimes it's better to just be simple, and sometimes the simplest approach is the strongest and the most powerful approach. So which is similar to what you're saying. And then, but you touched on one thing, and so I thought we could leave with our listeners as we transition into this new year. There are many people that are overwhelmed, unsure. I mean, yeah, we're into a new year, but that doesn't mean much. It's really just a calendar clicking over, right? Things are still, can be overwhelming. So what would you just say to someone who is overwhelmed and stuck right now, things that they can do in this idea of being able to work with their own space? Because really that's what they have right now, a lot of people.
I would recommend, and this is probably not what people want to hear, to carve out a space and time, because time and space are the same thing actually, to meditate every day, at least like 5 minutes a day. Start with 5 minutes a day, every day. And consistency is more important. And find a place in your home that you always go to that can be your support, because it's I remember I was a kind of meditator for like a decade. And what changed was a couple things. My now meditation teacher, David, he had said that the first time I met him in a class. He said, I knew someone that kind of meditated for 10 years. And I was like, oh boy, that's me. And then someone in like actually the Feng Shui Masters program, she said that she decided to start meditating because she realized she wanted to treat herself. And I realized, wow, that's really sad that I can't even give myself 5 minutes a day to meditate, that I'm too busy for that, that I'm going through my life with so much overwhelm and aggression and speediness that I can't even fit 5 minutes in to cultivate myself. So I think that starting with that and having a consistency with your practice, with no matter what comes up, whether it's a rainy day, whether it's a good day, whether it's a bad day, whatever comes up, that you always show up for yourself. And there's so many ways to begin to work with overwhelm. And this goes hand in hand with your space, because I want you to also find a place in your home where this practice can take place. So you can start to create a space in your home that supports you as well. And that can just be like the edge of your bed.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Anjie, for
You're
walking us through
welcome.
this topic. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And
Why don't we tell them about so now that we're doing this every week, we
yes.
added in, well, we've invited Christina Wingard once a month to do the astrology forecast, and we have a new thing that's starting in
Yes.
February.
Yeah, we're going to start in February. We're going to do once a month, 1 week. I don't know which week I think it's like the last week. We're going to try and be pretty consistent. We're going to do an ongoing series in this Feng Shui 101, basically keeping it really simple, bringing our listeners Feng Shui basics. So stuff that you can, not just stuff you can do in your home. Like, yes, obviously we'll talk about that, but almost as like a tiny mini course. So I see it as being. So we're going to go through, I'm pulling together the stuff now and the topics, and hopefully it'll flow well, but yeah, so that you can have look forward to. And I hope people enjoy it, because I think it's nice to get back to basics sometimes.
Yeah, so we're going to call that Feng Shui 101. And I think we're actually going to revisit and maybe update some of our old episodes. I mean, the old episodes will still stay available for you to listen to, because my students tell me they've listened to like all the episodes, and they listen to, like, clients tell me they listen to them all the time. So we're really grateful for you longtime listeners and new listeners. But we might, like, I think we'll like revisit and refresh, because Laura and I, like, we don't pre-script any of this stuff. We're kind of always talking off the top of our heads, and so we really want to always provide for you our kind of current, what's happening for us now, our experience around our practice right now, as well as how to bring it up to date. Like, oh, one last thing I was reading about Buddhism, which I think works with feng shui too, is there's a Zen adage that Buddhism, or we could say feng shui, is like a bread recipe, but nobody wants to eat stale bread. So Laura and I have learned different recipes, but basically the same recipe from our teachers, and they keep teaching us, they keep making new loaves of bread for us, and we are making fresh loaves of bread for all of you.
Good. No, I like that though. Nice.
Yeah. I like how he was like, I think it was Alan Watts that said it, but that nobody wants stale bread.
It's true. That's true, but a lot of practices. Cool.
Well, so yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Holistic Spaces podcast. tune in every Monday for a new podcast episode, including our astrology forecast with Christina Wingeier and Feng Shui 101 every month. And if you like our podcast and this episode, please share it with others. You can also leave a review. And it would be great if you could support the podcast by checking out our certification and mini courses at mindfuldesignschool.com. You can explore the world of holistic spaces and feng shui on an even deeper level by checking out our blog at mindfuldesignschool.com. You can also look at our store at holisticspaces.com. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.